UCLA can still get it done without Lauren Betts.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Kalia Butler. Joined alongside me is Sophia Jones. We're going to get into, I don't know if people like this, but we kind of like it, in terms of kind of our hot takes on women's basketball, as well as where we're at with the CBA negotiations. We're within that 48-hour time limit. If you want to extend, whatever the case may be, we'll get into that. But first, UCLA really exposed the struggles that Duke is still facing, but also were able to get a blowout win without Lauren Betts. It was an 89-59 victory to get third place in the Players Era Women's Championship that was in Vegas this past week. Again, playing without Lauren Betts, who is currently just dealing with I believe her left arm injury. Which we saw kind of happen in their game against Texas. But it was pretty dominant for the Bruins from the get-go. I mean, they led 30-7 just after the first quarter, forced 6 turnovers and hit 5 of 7 3-pointers. And that was just within the first 10 minutes of gameplay. And Duke just really didn't have any sort of response afterwards.
No, they didn't. UCLA never looked like they were out of their comfort zone at any point in this game. And you would have maybe expected some form of growing pains missing Lauren Betts since she's such a huge part to their offense and defense. But they just had a seamless transition without her. And I actually felt like offensively, they were able to get a little bit more perimeter movement. So they just swung the ball around, got multiple reversals. They were more reliant on their guards being able to create either attacking downhill, getting to the rim, or just pulling up. But when that 4-out, 1-in, sometimes even 5-out style without Lauren Betts, who is usually constantly posting up because she's so dominant in the paint in the back to the basket game. But I thought it was actually a good chance for some of these other players to just get a little bit more run, especially those front court players to get that playing time. But then because we've seen it before, most evidently in that Texas game, when Lauren Betts is struggling, who's going to step up in those scenarios? And I felt like, again, this was a good opportunity for a couple other Bruins just to find their rhythm.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. They did rely much more heavily on their guard play. Speaking of some standout performances for the Bruins in this game, Clarice Ledger-Walker came in. She was 5 of 9 from 3. She finished with 20 points and had 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Gianna Neepkins as well had 13 points, went perfect from behind the arc, went 3 of 3, contributed 6 rebounds, as well as 6 assists. So also moving the ball really well for the Bruins. And then Gabrielle Jaquez, who had 23 points, leading the way for the Bruins in that game, was 8 of 16 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. And also had 5 rebounds. But we also have to mention Kiki Rice. So we have a very balanced scoring attack for UCLA, who had 17 points with 6 of 13 from field goal range and had 6 rebounds. So you mentioned we've seen this before for UCLA as well when Lauren Betts can't produce at the level that she usually has, or if the defense is just coming down on her a little bit more. We didn't necessarily see that within the Texas game, but some prior games, we've seen that UCLA can rely very heavily on their guard play. I believe this is a really important game for them to just kind of get back in the motion of we can win. We know how to win. How can we execute these things without Lauren present? Because you never know when that can happen later on down the line within this season.
Yeah, and I want to highlight the backcourt tandem of Charlize Ledger-Walker and Kiki Rice because the more or the better that each of them can perform individually, whether that's scoring or handling the ball well, just kind of, really doing or playing up to their roles, the more cohesive that backcourt is going to look because you essentially have 2 point guards there, which it can be extremely valuable. I think, especially when you look at that Texas game a little bit and you have such a tenacious defender like Roy Harmon, it allows, maybe one of them to play off ball a bit more to get more open looks. But the better that those two can continue to play and just develop that cohesiveness, I think will be huge for the development of this UCLA team, and especially like we said, when if there are cases when Lauren Betts isn't really having, or if she's out like yesterday, or if she isn't really having as productive games as we're used to seeing, because you're going to need to find scoring in other places and just again handling the ball and getting it to Betts in the first place.
Just looking at these numbers a little bit for UCLA, they were shooting 59% from the perimeter. We're shooting 53% from the field. But let's talk about Duke a little bit as well. Comparing those numbers, only shot 27% from three and 34% from the field. Had a lot of difficulties getting into any sort of offensive flow. You do have Toby Fournier, who had a double-double with 17 points and 10 rebounds. Ashlyn Jackson was able to step in as well, showing her seniority, 18 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists on the day. But I think Duke may have been a little bit thrown off. I'm not sure how much time they had to prepare for Lauren Betts being out, a team that relies very heavily on their defense throughout the ACC, has been one of the best scoring defenses for the past couple of years. But it seems like that game plan maybe threw them off a little bit, because when you're looking at UCLA, who relied heavily on their guard play and had 5 different players scoring double digits, but they're also all players capable of handling the ball and running the offense. I think that threw Duke off, where you're used to Lauren Betts, kind of the offense flows through her. When you have 5 different guards that are capable of running the offense in different ways or getting out and getting their own bucket, I think Duke was more prepared for that kind of internal play of how do we crash on Lauren Betts. Maybe was not as prepared to have kind of 5 different looks sent to them every time they had to get back into a defensive set.
Definitely. And this is coming off of them playing the day before as well. So it was up until that, or I think it was the UCLA Texas game that was first. So they're probably watching that game. And then when they see that, or just anticipating how, or it wasn't really until they lost to South Carolina that they actually technically found out who they would be playing. And then so you're scrambling to get that scouting report together for UCLA. Then you're scrambling to get that scouting report together for a Lauren Betts-less Bruins. I mean, when you have Gabriela Jaquez playing a lot of that four position and inside posting up, that's a little bit of a different look than they anticipated, I am assuming. And again, like you mentioned, that whole team just became a lot more guard dominant and playing downhill, attacking through the elbows, just very perimeter dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good win to kind of get back on their feet. Looks like Duke still has some work to do. I mean, they came out and played against some really tough competition. I have high hopes for what they'll look like within ACC play. But as Kara Lawson has said, still kind of finding their identity. And I think that reigned true as what we saw throughout the tournament. But they have to go on and play LSU team after this. But big picture wise, what does this mean for UCLA, as well as maybe the status of Lauren Betts possibly being out for a couple of games?
So when Corey Close found out that Lauren Betts was going to be out before the game, she said, "Believe me, it wasn't the news that I wanted. We were trying to test some things to see if she could go through." And our medical staff was just like, "No, it's not wise." She had that a little bit of that scare during that Texas game, came out, came back in. So it sounds like they're being cautious with this, but UCLA does face Tennessee on Sunday, so a very quick turnaround and some really competitive games scheduled ahead in a bunch. But again, I think this was just a good game for UCLA to develop a little bit more cohesiveness and just see what they would look like without Lauren Betts. Not saying that this could be something prolonged, but you do want to, test the waters a little bit in this situation. But as for Duke, I did feel like this game they got more quality looks than I've seen consistently in the past. They just need to start hitting them a bit more. That defense is going to try to be there as much as possible. I think Ashlyn Jackson scoring a good number of points this game for her to get more in a rhythm. It takes a little bit of the scoring pressure off of Toby Fournier, who I would like to see her not back to the basket all the time, but because she has great athleticism and foot speed on the point of attack, get her going downhill in a little bit of open space. But I think that Duke is coming along a little bit. This just really isn't the time for them to get down on themselves. It's a long season. The ACC doesn't really have a super clear front runner right now, in my opinion. So they could still potentially do some damage. And again, when you have Kara Lawson, who in December is going to take a little bit of time doing some Team USA training camp, I think those are the types of experiences that can help refresh your mindset as well.
Absolutely. We'll see what Duke can do, especially going up against this LSU team. Maybe they can bounce back. Maybe you'll still have some things to work on. As for UCLA being able to get back in the winning bracket, but coming up after this, we'll see if CBA negotiations can also get back on track. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep their fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the bag drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. DoorDash has you covered for those late night highlights, last minute watch parties, and double OT fuel ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. So we're finally within the 48-hour notice that either side would have to let the other side know if they would like to opt out of the extension, or if they would like to opt out or add an extension to the CBA negotiations. Just keeping you guys updated on what the most recent proposal had. It included an offer from the league with a max salary of more than $1.1 million. However, this seven-figure number represents potential earnings based on a combination of player base salary and revenue sharing. The supermax base salary would still be in the six-figure range with multiple sources, or excuse me, with six-figure range. This is all coming from Front Office Sports. It would be between $800,000 to $850,000. So we talked about this a little bit before. When people see that $1 million, $1.1 million figure, your eyes start to bulge a little bit. You're like, wow, that's a lot of money. But there was still a lot of aspects to it that players have not necessarily openly come out about, but have mentioned that they're still not necessarily satisfied with what the league is offering. we are still, as I mentioned, within that 48-hour time frame where somebody will likely have to make a statement about something today. So very curious to see. Right now, it kind of seems like the players will have to address the public about this, as the league has already come forward with their new negotiation. But the time is definitely ticking as we approach the 30th deadline.
Yes, and the main reason why the WNBPA doesn't really see this latest proposal as moving things forward is because they did not feel the proposal featured a system where the salary cap and then in turn the players' salaries sufficiently grow with the business. So they're looking to get a system where the salary cap is determined directly by basketball related income. They don't want one that is chosen, which in their opinion, arbitrarily. So, and it grows at a fixed rate. They do not want that. The current agreement also has a separate revenue sharing provision that grants direct payments to players if the league hits certain revenue targets. That's also a little bit of a sore spot for some of these WNBA players because they've expressed a lack of transparency when it came to the league actually sharing some of these revenue numbers, because that revenue sharing in the current CBA has yet to happen, partly because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the wobble, of course. It took a little bit of a hit there. But right now it doesn't really look like they're sold on this proposal and they're really standing their ground for what they want. And if there's no deal by this November 30th, like you said, they could agree to another extension because this was supposed to be done October 30th of this past year. But hey, whatever gets it done for both sides. But if there's no extension and the current deal expires, a work stoppage would not automatically happen, and instead a phase called status quo would follow. That period would maintain the working conditions under of the current CBA, and without a new agreement in place, the league and union could continue to negotiate. But if there is an extension, it would still open the door for a potential work stoppage, either a strike initiated by the players or a lockout initiated by the owners. So both sides could kind of take action on how they want to go about a potential work stoppage. But a downside to a potential extension would be that the expansion drafts should be coming soon, and they can only occur if the new CBA is ratified. Last year's with the Golden State Valkyries took place in early December. And when you also consider that the majority of the players in the league are free agents, you want as much time as possible to explore that free agency and not let it be prolonged.
Absolutely. And that's what the focus is right now, is the future. And I think even when we're looking at some of the other leagues, current and active players have made it very clear that everything that they're doing, everything that they're fighting for is for the future of the league and the players to come after them. And so when we're looking at the near future, that is these expansion teams that are coming in, and it makes it difficult to build a roster when you can't have any of those drafts. And kind of looking into that free agency, that would probably be where that's the biggest disadvantage of some of these new teams coming in, new coaches coming in. Obviously you have the roster at hand, but you're still not exactly sure what you'll look like, not only with the draft but free agency. If CBA negotiations obviously are not met just yet, that also is a question mark of where players want to be, if they want to stay with their teams, if they're looking to transition elsewhere. So ideally, they can come to terms with something quickly. The current CBA was finalized in January of 2020 after extensions. So if they don't get it done this month, it would postpone till December. Ideally, you could have something done by there so you can have these expansion drafts and everything. But as of now, I have not heard anything from either side. But as all of our podcasts have gone, we'll probably hear something within the next 30 minutes after afterwards after we mentioned something. But coming up after this, we're going to have some takes on women's basketball. Can we just let the game be the game?
The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to fanduel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Sophia, I'll let you take the lead on this one, coming from a former collegiate player, as well as, somebody who has been part of these talks, I'm sure, at some point or another. But Asia Wilson on Hot Ones recently, which might I add was a very funny episode. Anything that has to do with Asia Wilson is pure entertainment. But I'll let you take the lead on this one.
So essentially, the interviewer for Hot Ones asked Asia Wilson what she makes of this discourse surrounding that they need to lower the rims in women's basketball. Of course, if you're been paying attention to women's basketball, this has been a question that has lingered for a cool minute. And Asia basically just quenched that. She said, dunking is cool. It's amazing. I've seen people dunk a lot. It's cool, but maybe it's not just part of our game. And I wish people could really understand that. I wish they could really cherish the other things that we bring to the game that maybe is just kind of flashy as dunking. I wish people could get away from that, stop talking about lowering rims, all that shenanigans, and just focus on the craft we have in our league right now. Mind you, she was saying all of that while like fanning her mouth because of the hot chicken wings. So this is the composure that stems from the passion she has about this topic. She also threw in speaking about Chelsea Gray and the types of passes that she makes and how you barely see that anywhere in basketball. But it just, with all of the attention that the WNBA is now getting, it's also bringing a lot of unfortunately negative attention, which is the whole dunking conversation. And I think what Asia had to say is completely 100% correct because yeah, exactly. She said dunking is cool. It's cool, but it's not the whole game. And quite frankly, I feel like when you watch a WNBA game compared to a game that has some of that dunking, you actually have to be a lot more fundamentally and sound and skilled in order to score. You can't just rely on your athleticism, your speed, jumping someone out the gym. No, it takes a lot more finesse essentially to be able to do what these women do. And I think that that deserves a lot of respect that unfortunately they don't get all the time.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And it kind of just gets to the point of, respecting the game as what it is. I believe the way that women's basketball is played in particular is kind of just like the skeleton layer of what basketball is. Obviously, you add the athleticism of what some of these men's players look like nowadays. And unfortunately, not everybody has a plus 40-inch vertical, whatever the case may be. But I believe the men's game is just different. They're obviously extremely athletic, bouncy. You can have, Sophie, I'll let you talk about this too, but these women also go up against male practice players, and they could have maybe not even touched a basketball in their lifetime, but they're just naturally athletic. They're naturally bouncy. It's a different game because they are a different biological setup than what women are. For women, they play such a skillful game, in my opinion, and the fundamentals are really there in every aspect of it. And you mentioned too, you have to be much more technical when it comes to scoring within women's basketball, which I think is one of the most impressive and exciting aspects about it. And a lot of it is less like one overly dominant player. Sometimes it is, but I think women's basketball also comes down a lot to team basketball. Even when you're looking at the aces and Asia Wilson, obviously Asia Wilson is the most dominant player within the WNBA. However, when you look at their success and how they're able to win, a lot of it comes down to them playing team basketball, and even lower from that, playing sound fundamental basketball, which in my opinion is still just as exciting. I've also, I've seen men's games that have zero dunks in the game, and I still enjoyed the game without having somebody to dunk in it. I think that's the beauty of loving basketball and what the game truly is. And I just think it's so interesting that these conversations come up at times, because I don't see that same comparison in other sports at times. Even thinking of soccer, the WSL is doing incredibly well right now too. I don't see them necessarily get as compared to men's players, because I mean, obviously the skill level is different. But in a way where women have to be a little bit more tactful when it comes to things as compared to men. But men also have their own way of dominating the sport, obviously. Even thinking of softball compared to baseball. Baseball is an incredibly hard sport in general. Softball has, those slight changes of, having a different ball, having an underhand pitch, but people still respect the game for what it is. I just feel like I don't see this dialogue as much in other sports compared to what I see in basketball, and even some, let's just say NBA players trying to compare, the skill level of women to eighth graders. I just think it's devaluing the sport, whether you have that opinion of what the case may be or not, or if you don't like the comparison of NBA to WNBA players, that's totally fine. They're two completely different games, as we mentioned, two completely different players. No one player is going to be similar to the next. But I think what everybody should be agreeing on is that it is exciting to see a women's sport have the eyes that it has right now, especially for young women growing up, getting the chance and opportunity to play this and make this their own profession. And that's what should be celebrated. And truthfully, if you just don't like watching it, then you don't have to.
You don't have to, and I think that you don't have to, and then you don't have to speak on it either. Let like the rundown says, just let women's basketball be. It's its own entity, and it doesn't need changing on how the way that these women play. I mean, you talk about just having that skill, even in some of these college games, I'm looking at, you know, all these different players. I'm looking at Madison Booker's mid-range and her ability to just rise up and shoot. And I'm looking at just all these different skill sets that these women have that are so impressive. I can even say for myself, having grown up playing basketball, a lot around other guys as well. I mean, my trainer back in Miami, his name is Stan Remy. I would work out with players around my own age that are currently in the NBA. And I could tell you pretty confidently, I will go through some of these workouts, just the entire drill portion, and look flawless compared to some of these players that are now currently in the NBA. But when it came down to playing one sometimes at the end, I am 5'6". Some of these players are 6'6" and have a lot more athleticism and just size overall. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, hey, for the 50 minutes of this 1 hour workout, it was me that was in the front. I was the one that was setting the tone. You can ask my trainer right now. He would sometimes, a lot of time, ask me to go first so I could set the example for some of these other players. But just going to the point of, again, if you can appreciate good skill, ball movement, finesse, then you don't need to have an opinion on this. I even think for people that try to hop on the women's basketball train now, know your roots as well. We were talking about Elena Deladon yesterday. She's the best basketball free throw shooter of all time. basketball. Let's not forget that shooting free throws is a skill. We're not going to forget about Maya Moore, Candace Parker, even going back to Lisa Leslie. No, Cheryl Miller, we're gonna remember our roots and how the skill has been around the women's game and it is currently evolving. And that talent is just, it shows for itself.
Candace Parker basically created positionless basketball within the WNBA. So you talk about laying the foundation. The foundation has been set, and women are constantly evolving. So again, an appreciation for the game. But we'll let you know that Sophia and I very much appreciate the game of women's basketball. And that's why we come to talk to you about it every single day. But that is going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for watching Locked On Women's Basketball. Have a great weekend. We will see you guys on Monday.